The sun had barely risen over Cebu City when Marco Dela Cruz stepped out onto the familiar cracked pavement of their small neighborhood in Lahug. The air smelled of freshly steamed puto and the ocean breeze drifting from the port. Marco carried a second-hand acoustic guitar slung across his back, its body scratched and weathered from years of singing on the streets. Every day, he woke before dawn to help his mother prepare her food stall, pandesal, lumpia, and kakanin, simple snacks that kept them alive. His mother, Aling Rosa, always greeted him with a smile, but Marco knew those smiles hid the weight of bills, rent, and endless responsibilities since his father abandoned them. At 19, Marco had learned early that dreams didn't feed families, but they gave people strength. And singing was the only thing that ever made him feel powerful. His voice wasn't trained, but it came from a place of honesty, carved from struggle and late-night prayers. When he sang, people stopped, listened, and for a moment, even strangers felt connected to him. Music was his soul speaking. Every morning, after helping his mother set up her stall near the market, Marco would go to his usual singing spot near Fuente Osmina Circle. The traffic buzzed around him, jeepneys honking, vendors shouting, children laughing, but the moment he strummed his guitar, everything else faded away. Some days he earned only enough for a meal. Other days, a kind passerby would drop a few extra pesos. But Marco never complained. He wasn't singing for money. He was singing because something inside him refused to be silent. One night, during a small seaside festival in Lapu-Lapu, he was invited to perform on a tiny wooden stage lit only by dim yellow bulbs. The waves crashed gently behind him as families gathered with plastic chairs and street food. Marco stepped up nervously, clutching his old guitar. He took a deep breath and began singing a heartfelt Filipino ballad. His voice drifted across the shoreline, raw, soaring, powerful. As he reached the chorus, a foreign tourist paused mid-bite, captivated by the emotion pouring from his voice. The tourist, amazed, took out his phone and recorded the performance without Marco even noticing. After the show, Marco helped the organizers pack up chairs, believing his night had ended like every other, simple, quiet, forgotten by the world. He walked home with sand stuck to his slippers, unaware that something extraordinary had just begun. Within 48 hours, that tourist's video exploded on TikTok. Hundreds of thousands of views. Then millions. Comments came from across the world. Who is this boy? Pure talent. He deserves a bigger stage. Marco didn't know any of this until his cousin rushed to their house early one morning, waving his phone and shouting, "Kuya Marco. Ikaw, too. Viral ka. Viral talaga." Marco stared at the screen in disbelief as he watched a version of himself he never imagined the world would see. His hands shook, and his mother, confused at first, slowly gasped and covered her mouth when she realized what was happening. People weren't just watching, they were praising him. Celebrating him. Dreaming for him. Then an email notification popped up. You are officially invited to audition for America's Got Talent. At first, Marco thought it was a cruel joke. But when he opened the message and saw the official AGT letter, his knees weakened. Tears streamed down his face as his mother rushed to hold him. For the first time, he allowed himself to believe in a dream he once kept buried. The boy who sang barefoot on Cebu streets was now being called to one of the biggest stages in the world. And that night, as he looked out at the Cebu skyline glowing softly in the distance, Marco whispered to himself, "This is my moment." Marco stepped onto the America's Got Talent stage with trembling hands, his heart pounding louder than the applause welcoming him. The stage lights were blinding, far brighter than anything he had ever seen in Cebu. His sneakers felt too small, his voice trapped somewhere beneath nerves and disbelief. This was the moment people only dreamed of, yet here he was, a simple boy from the Philippines, standing before millions. The judges' table glowed under the spotlight. Simon Cowell leaned forward with his familiar unreadable expression, eyes sharp and evaluating. Heidi smiled gently, Sophia waved, and Howie gave him a thumbs up. Marco swallowed hard. "What's your name?" Simon asked, his voice echoing across the quiet room. "I'm Marco Dela Cruz, from Cebu, Philippines," he managed to say. The crowd erupted in cheers the moment he mentioned the Philippines, waving flags, shouting proudly. Marco felt something in his chest loosen, like the world was giving him permission to be brave. "All right, Marco," Simon said. "Show us why you're here." Marco gripped the microphone, closed his eyes for a moment, and remembered everything: the market mornings, his mother's tired smile, the streets where he first found his voice, and the dream he carried alone for so long. Then he sang. The first note floated out soft and trembling, but quickly grew into something powerful, controlled, and heartbreakingly beautiful. A voice shaped by struggle and hope. The audience fell silent, mesmerized. Simon's eyes widened. Even the camera operators paused, sensing something extraordinary unfolding. By the time Marco reached the high notes, the entire room rose to its feet in stunned amazement. This wasn't just an audition. It was the arrival of a voice America had never heard before. The final note hung in the air like a prayer answered, and as it faded, the entire auditorium erupted into thunderous applause. Marco stood frozen, chest rising and falling, unsure if he was dreaming. The stage lights shimmered like stars around him while the audience cheered his name. Tears welled in his eyes, but he held them back, still stunned by what had just happened. Simon Cowell slowly stood up. The crowd gasped. Simon rarely stood unless he was genuinely moved. He looked at Marco with a mixture of disbelief and admiration. "Marco," he began, his voice softer than usual, "that was one of the most powerful performances I have heard in many, many years." The room fell silent, hanging on every word. "You didn't just sing, you poured your whole soul into that moment. And we all felt it." Marco trembled, gripping the microphone as tears finally spilled down his cheeks. Heidi clapped joyfully, Sophia placed a hand over her heart, and Howie nodded deeply, impressed beyond words. Then Simon glanced at his fellow judges, took a deep breath, and placed his hand on the golden buzzer. The crowd screamed. A burst of gold confetti exploded from above, swirling around Marco like falling stars. He dropped to his knees, overwhelmed, crying into his hands as the stage turned into a dream he had only imagined from Cebu's quiet nights. The judges ran to embrace him, and Simon placed a hand on his shoulder. "This is your moment, Marco," he said. And for the first time in his life, Marco felt truly seen by the world.